ሰላም። ዛሬ እንግዲህ አንድ ትኩረት የሚስብ ሰነድ ይዘን መጥተናል።
አዎ
በኢትዮጵያ ኦርቶዶክስ ተዋሕዶ ቤተክርስቲያን ትምህርቶችና በዚሁ ሰነድ ኑፋቄዎች ተብለው በተጠቀሱ ሌሎች ቡድኖች መካከል ያለውን ልዩነት የሚተነትን ነው።
ትክክል። የመናፍቁ እምነት መልሶቻቸው ፒዲኤፍ የሚለውን መሰረት ያደረገ ውይይት ነው ዛሬ የምናደርገው።
ልክ ነው። ዋናው ዓላማችን እንግዲህ የዚህን ትንተና ቁልፍ ነጥቦች መለየት እና መሰረታዊ የልዩነት ሐሳቦችን ማውጣት ነው።
በጣም ያው እዚህ ላይ መነሻው ወሳኝ ነው። ጽሑፉ ልዩነቶቹ የሚያሳየው ከኦርቶዶክሳዊ አስተምህሮ አንጻር ማለትም ከመጽሐፍ ቅዱስና ከቤተ ክርስቲያኒቱ ትውፊት አንጻር ነው። ስለዚህ ትንታኔው የራሱ የሆነ መነጽር አለው።
በጣም ትክክል። እንግዲያውስ ከመጀመሪያው ነጥብ እንሳ፣ የእምነት ምንጮች ላይ ያለው ልዩነት።
አዎ ጽሑፉ እንደሚለው ኦርቶዶክስ ቤተ ክርስቲያን መጽሐፍ ቅዱስንና ትውፊትን አጣምራ ነው የምትቀበለው።
ልክ ነው፣ አይነጣጥሉም። ያው ትውፊት ስንል ግን ብዙ ጊዜ ትንሽ ግራ መጋባት ሊኖር ይችላል። ምንድን ነው ትውፊት በዚህ አረዳድ?
ጥሩ ጥያቄ ነው። ሰነዱ ላይ እንደተበራራው ትውፊት ማለት ከመጽሐፍ ቅዱስ በተጨማሪ ያው ከሐዋርያት ጀምሮ በቅዱሳን አባቶች በኩል የመጡ ትምህርቶች፣ ስርዓቶች፣ የትርጓሜ አካሄዶች እነዚህ ሁሉ ናቸው።
ገባኝ።
እና ይህንን ጽሑፉ ሶላ ስክሪፕቱራ ከሚለው ያው መጽሐፍ ቅዱስ ብቻ ከሚለው መርህ ጋር ያነጻጽረዋል።
አዎ
ያው ሌሎች ቡድኖች ላይ ያ መርህ ዋነኛ ነው ብሎ ነው ጽሑፉ የሚያስከንብጠው። ስለዚህ እዚህ ጋር ነው አንዱ ትልቅ ልዩነት የሚነሳው።
ይሄ የመነሻ ልዩነት ይመስለኛል ሌሎች ብዙ ጉዳዮች ላይ ተጽዕኖ የሚያሳድረው አይደል?
በትክክል በጣም መሰረታዊ ነው።
ለምሳሌ ያው ጽሑፍ ላይ ትኩረት የተሰጠው የቅዱሳን ሚና፣ በተለይ ደግሞ የድንግል ማርያምና የሌሎች ቅዱሳን አማላጅነት ጉዳይ።
እውነት ነው። ይህ ጉዳይ በቀጥታ ከትውፊት ጋር የተያያዘ ነው። ያው በኦርቶዶክሳዊ አስተምህሮ መሰረት ቅዱሳን በሰማይም ያሉት በምድርም ያሉት በእግዚአብሔር ፊት አማላጅነት ያቀርባሉ። ይሄ እምነት ደግሞ መሰረቱ መጽሐፍ ቅዱስም ትውፊትም ነው ይላል ጽሑፉ።
ማስረጃዎችንም ይጠቅሳል አይደል?
አዎ ከመጽሐፍ ቅዱስም ከታሪክም ከተለያየ ነገር ይጠቅሳል። በሌላ በኩል ደግሞ ያው ኑፋቄዎች ብሎ የሚጠራቸው ቡድኖች ይህንን አማላጅነት አይቀበሉትም ወይም ደግሞ በተለየ መንገድ ነው የሚረዱት ይላል። ምክንያቱም ለነሱ ዋናው ትኩረት በክርስቶስ በኩል ያለው ቀጥተኛ ግንኙነት ላይ ነው። ያው እዚህ ጋር ያለው ልዩነት ሰማያዊውና ምድራዊው ቤተ ክርስቲያን ያለውን ግንኙነት እንዴት እናየዋለን የሚለው ላይ ይመስለኛል።
በጣም አስገራሚ ንጽጽር ነው። ይህ የአስተምህሮ ልዩነት እንግዲህ ወደ ተግባር ሲመጣ በአምልኮ ስርዓቶች ላይ እንዴት ነው የሚገለጸው?
ልክ ነው።
ጽሑፉ ስለ ጥምቀት፣ ስለ ቁርባን፣ ስለ ንሳም ያነሳል።
አዎ እነዚህ የምስጢራት ልዩነቶች የሚመነጩት ከዚሁ ከስነ መለኮታዊ ልዩነት ነው። ለምሳሌ ጥምቀት ላይ የሕፃናት ጥምቀት ጉዳይ አለ።
አዎ
በቅዱስ ቁርባን ላይ ያው በኦርቶዶክስ እምነት ወደ ክርስቶስ ስጋና ደም ስለመመለወጡ ያለው ትምህርት
ትክክል
ከሌሎች አረዳድ ይለያያል ይላል። የንስሐም አስፈላጊነትና አፈጻጸም ላይ ያለው ልዩነትም ተጠቅሷል።
ያው እንደ መጽሐፈ ቅዳሴ አስፈላጊነት ወይም የመስቀል ትርጉም ያሉ ጉዳዮችም
እነዚህም ገብተዋል። ሁሉም የሚያሳየው ልዩነቱ የአፈጻጸም ብቻ ሳይሆን ከጀርባ ያለው የእምነትና የትርጉም ልዩነት መሆኑን ነው።
እንግዲህ ይሄንን ሁሉ ስናጠቃልለው ጽሑፉ በዋናነት የሚያሳየን ነገር በኦርቶዶክስ ተዋሕዶ ቤተ ክርስቲያን እና በሌሎቹ ቡድኖች መካከል ያለው ልዩነት መሰረታዊ ነው። በስነ መለኮት፣ በእምነት ምንጭ አረዳድ፣ በአፈጻጸምም ጭምር።
በትክክል ዋናው ነገር ግን እና ይሄ በጣም ሊሰመርበት የሚገባው ጽሑፉ ይህን ሁሉ ትንታኔ የሚያቀርበው ከራሱ ከኦርቶዶክሳዊ የትርጓሜ ማዕከል አንጻር መሆኑን ማስታወስ ነው።
አዎ የራሱን አቋም ግልጽ ማድረግና ልዩነቱን በዛ መነጽር ማሳየት ነው ዓላማው።
ልክ ነው።
እሺ እንግዲህ ውይይታችንን ስናጠቃልል ለአድማጮቻችን እንዲያስቡበት የምንተው ጥያቄ ይኖራል። ይህንን ትንታኔ ካየን በኋላ እንዲህ አይነት የሥነ መለኮት ንጽጽሮች፣ የልዩነት ማብራሪያዎች በተለያዩ እምነት ተከታታዮች መካከል ያለውን መገባባት፣ ግንኙነት እንዴት ነው የሚቀርጹት?
ጥሩ ጥያቄ ነው።
ያው ይሄ ሰነድ በቀረበበት መንገድ በማህበረሰብ ውስጥ የሚደረገውን ውይይትስ እንዴት ሊመራው ወይም ሊቀርጾ ይችላል? ይህንን እያሰቡ እንዲቆዩ እንጋብዛለን።
You know that feeling, right? You want to get your head around something complex, something deep.
Yeah, but you just don't have the time to wade through tons of information.
Exactly. Or maybe you don't know where to start.
Yeah.
Well, that's what we're here for. Welcome to this deep dive.
Ah.
Today, we're venturing into Ethiopian Orthodox Christianity. Got this really fascinating set of Amharic texts you shared.
Yeah, they look pretty significant. They seem to be excerpts, probably from a larger work, could be theological, maybe historical, from within that tradition.
Right.
And what's really useful is we have both the text pieces and a table of contents.
Oh, good.
Which gives us a great sort of bird's eye view, even if we can't, read every word right now.
Absolutely. That table of contents, it's like our map, isn't it?
Yeah.
It hints at the richness and the different areas covered in the original.
Mm-hmm.
We can already see sections that look pretty key things about sacraments, different types of prayers, maybe important people or historical moments.
Exactly. So our goal today really is to be your guides through this initial layout.
Okay.
We'll point out the main landmarks, the core ideas, anything that really jumps out just from the structure.
Like the highlights on the map.
Precisely. Giving you a solid foundation, a starting point.
Sounds good. So let's dive into that table of contents then. What really jumps out at you first? What are the big areas?
Well, the first thing that's really striking is how prominent devotional practices seem to be.
Okay.
Right near the beginning, we see these significant-looking sections on prayer. That's and prostration, and also fasting.
Right up front?
Yeah, their position, and, guessing from the page ranges, the space given to them, it really suggests these practices are, fundamental.
Fundamental to the religious life described here.
Absolutely. Fundamental to the life, the theology.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder, perhaps, if there's a strong emphasis on, personal spiritual discipline.
Right. That's a really interesting point.
Yeah.
And we also spotted a whole section just for Holy Communion, right?
Yes.
Which, that's obviously a central sacrament, especially in Orthodox traditions.
It is. And the fact it gets its own detailed section, that really underlines its central role, no question.
Makes sense.
And then moving on from those core practices, the contents page also points us towards sections about priests or Eli.
Ah, okay. The clergy.
Right. So that suggests a focus on maybe the church structure, the roles, the responsibilities of the clergy.
And the page numbers you mentioned. They give a sense of scale, too.
They do. Some topics clearly get a lot more space in the original book.
Yeah.
And this potential focus on structure, the hierarchy maybe, hinted at by the section on priests.
Well, that's something you see in many established Christian traditions.
Okay, yeah. Now, this is where I thought it got really interesting. Looking a bit further down that list, we see things that look a bit more specialized. There's something about saints. Yes, exactly. That would likely dive into the lives, the importance of, revered figures within the Ethiopian Orthodox Church.
And that section seems quite chunky looking at the page numbers. 86 to 91, you said.
It does seem substantial, yeah. Which suggests a real focus on hagiography, the study of saints.
Right.
Their stories, maybe their role in intercession could be really important in this view of the faith.
Okay.
And then there's another section later, looks like it delves into historical context. The title seems to be something like, The Historical Background of the Cross, Yeti Ini.
Wow, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
So even without reading the Amharic yet, just the structure, the layout, it highlights what's considered foundational. Okay, so we also have those text excerpts you mentioned.
Yes.
What can we tell from those just by looking without, full translation?
Well, even without the language, you can pick up on visual cues, organizational things.
Like what?
Like, for instance, we spotted numbered lists on a couple of pages, 27 and 39. Now, that kind of formatting usually signals a very structured explanation. Maybe it's outlining steps in a ritual, or listing key beliefs, or, just presenting points in sequence.
So it's like the author's saying, pay attention, this is organized logically.
Exactly. It's like a guide, a step-by-step for something important.
Right.
And we also see things like headings, maybe subheadings,
Some text looks like it might be bolded.
Visual cues.
Visual signals, yeah. The author probably used them to emphasize certain words or core ideas. They help us guess what might be crucial concepts.
And what about actual visuals? You mentioned a chart.
Yes, on page 107, it really looks like a genealogical chart, a lineage chart. Now, obviously, we can't read the names right now, but just seeing a chart like that suggests a focus on lineage.
Whose lineage, maybe?
Could be important religious leaders, maybe historical figures, possibly even tracing how certain theological ideas developed. Just recognizing these aids, even now, gives us some valuable context.
Okay, so putting it all together, the table of contents, these structural hints in the text, what kind of specific details or, aha moments might someone find if they could read the whole thing?
Well, let's take that section on prostration, for example.
Okay.
Someone who knows the tradition, or wants to, would likely find real depth there, insights into the theology behind it, the specific ways it's done.
Why it's so prominent, maybe.
Exactly. Why give it so much space? What are the postures, the contexts? The length probably means detailed answers. And it makes you wonder, maybe this emphasis on prostration means something different or has a different weight compared to other Christian traditions where it might be, well, less common.
That makes total sense. It's likely not just bending down. There's probably a whole framework there.
Precisely. And similarly, those numbered lists we saw,
Yeah.
if they relate to, say, Holy Communion or prayers, they could give really specific info, like the elements used, the exact order of the service, maybe the wording of prayers, details that tell you a lot about the lived experience of the faith.
That would be incredibly valuable. And you mentioned Pope Cyril III on page 24. That name just jumps out, historically speaking.
It absolutely does. That reference points to a specific person, hints at connections to the wider Christian world.
Right.
Someone reading this would likely find out why he's mentioned, the relationship between the Ethiopian church and figures like him. It could shed light on, perhaps, historical links with the Coptic Orthodox Church of Alexandria.
Which is where the Ethiopian church historically came from, right?
Historically stemmed from, yes. So that could be a really key connection explored in the text.
Now, looking at how big this original work seems to be, judging by the page numbers, someone might feel, well, a bit overwhelmed.
Yeah, I can see that. It's understandable. The full document does seem pretty comprehensive.
So what's the counter to that feeling?
Well, it's crucial to remember what we're doing here. This deep dive, it's meant as an accessible start.
Okay.
We're not trying to do a complete exhaustive analysis of every single detail right now. Instead, we're focusing on giving you a framework, a way to understand the key areas this work covers. And honestly, the table of contents, the structural things we've seen, they offer a really valuable shortcut to grasping the main themes and sort of their relative importance in this text.
Okay, so let's try and wrap this up then, to bring it all together.
Yeah.
What are the main takeaways from just this initial look at your sources?
I'd say the biggest takeaway is that clear emphasis on devotional practice.
Prayer, prostration, fasting.
Exactly. Seeing them so early, getting detailed treatment in the contents, that's significant. Also, the central importance of Holy Communion and the defined role of priests seems strongly suggested. And then beyond that, including whole sections on saints and historical context like the cross background or mentioning Pope Cyril III, it just highlights the deep historical and spiritual roots being discussed.
And for you, the listener, this kind of overview, it really gives you a pretty significant head start, doesn't it? If you're curious about this particular faith tradition.
Yeah.
Just seeing how the material itself is structured, it offers real insight into what the authors thought was most important to convey.
That brings up a really interesting question for you to maybe think about later.
Okay.
Given this detailed attention we're seeing, seemingly, to both ritual practice and historical figures, what might that tell us about the relationship between, say, the lived day-to-day experience of faith and the historical consciousness within Ethiopian Orthodox Christianity, at least as presented here?
How the practice and the history intertwine.
Exactly. It's a fascinating thing to ponder and maybe something to explore further if it sparks your interest.